welcome back. I hope you're doing well. Welcome to a sewing day. So I am going to try something that I haven't done for quite some time and I'm kind of missing actually. So I thought I would do a high street hack today. I have seen a really cute little top over on Nobody's Child. It's a really simple shift style top, I guess, and it buttons fully down the front. So I'm going to try and make something similar and we'll see how it goes. So the pattern that I want to use to create a similar button down sleeveless top is the Ashton top by Helen's Closet. I absolutely love the Ashton, as you all know. If you're a regular here, I've made it quite a few times and it's just the perfect cropped, boxy, A-line shift top. So what I would really like to do is just change the pattern slightly to include a button band at the front. So in order to be able to do this, I need to make a few changes to the current pattern piece. So I have all my pattern pieces here. So we've got the back piece here, which is cut on the fold, and we don't need to change that at all. That's going to stay as it is. But for the front, we need to add on a button band. So rather than cut this on the fold as well so that it can easily pull over your head, instead I'm just going to extend the neckline, add on a button band and button it up instead of pulling it over my head. Another thing I think it will be helpful to do with this particular hack is just to lower the neckline slightly. So the neckline on the Ashton is quite high and quite rounded. So what I would quite like to do is just round off this neckline piece just so that I've got a little bit more space around the neck, I guess. I think if I've got a button up top that comes up too high to my neck, it might be slightly annoying. So I will show you how I'm planning to do that in a minute. There are a couple of different finishes you can do with the Ashton top. You can have a completely faced finish where you finish the neckline and the armholes with an all-in-one facing. And that is normally my preferred finish because I think it makes the top sit really nicely and it gives you that sort of structured boxy shape. But the other way that you can finish the top if you prefer is just to finish the neckline and the armholes with bias binding. So because I'm going to be fiddling around with the front of the top, for this version I'm going to be bias binding the neckline and also the armholes as well. And then with the hem of the top, again my normal preferred finish is to finish it with a lovely structured hem facing. I love this hem facing because again it just makes the top hang really nicely. It gives it a really good shape. What I would really like to do is keep the hem facing and just kind of redraft the hem facing so that I can face the two fronts that I will have adapted and also the back as well. So the fabric that I'm going to be using is this, I think it's a viscose linen, I'm not quite sure, I bought this quite some time ago from Hobbycraft, but it's really nice and drapey and it's got some texture to it as well, so I think it must be some kind of viscose linen, I'm not sure, but I thought it would be a good fabric to use to experiment, and if it does work then obviously this is going to be a great colour to go with loads of other things I already have. So let's get on. I need to iron this fabric, I need to redraft those pattern pieces, and I'll do my best to talk you through everything I'm doing as I go. Just before I cut into this, I wanted to show you what the neckline looks like. So I've traced around my original neckline piece first of all, just traced the pattern as it was, and then I've used the Pattern Master ruler to just come in 1 centimetre lower. So not very much at all really, just 1 centimetre. And I've just graded it up to the top of the shoulder seam. So I'm not actually interfering with the shoulder seam at all, I'm literally just lowering the neckline slightly. And because I haven't interfered with the shoulder seam, I don't need to change anything on my back piece. If I had taken this a little bit narrower, I would then need to narrow my back piece as well. I'm going to take the front facing piece, which you would normally cut on the fold because there is no button band, and I'm going to extend it to the length of where I've extended the front piece. So I'm going to add on 3.5 centimeters here, just so that the facing is the same width now as the extended new front piece. So we now have our new redrafted front bodice piece with the extended button band. I've also cut myself a little interfacing strip pattern piece, which I'll attach here just to reinforce the button band. And then I've got my extended front facing piece, which will fit on like that. So the button band will be interfaced and the facing will also be interfaced, and I like to use a really lightweight interfacing because I don't like anything to feel too stiff. So I need to iron my fabric and get the fabric cut out. Every time I film one of these videos, I'm reminded of how awful my ironing board cover is. And every time I think I'm going to order one and then I forget. I must replace this, it looks dreadful. I keep thinking that I'm going to make one and then I never get around to it. So I think when I'm done with this sewing today, I'm going to order one from Amazon. Okay, we're all cut out and I've just applied my interfacing as well to the facing pieces and also to the button band. So to a certain extent at the moment we can just follow the instructions for the bias bound finish. So first of all I need to sew my darts and then press my bias binding. I wanted to mention two sewing tools that I don't think I could live without now. One of them is the Pattern Master that you will have seen me using just to change that armhole, or sorry, neckline piece. I use this all the time for alterations, it is so handy, and one of the best things about it is that it has this sort of centerline ruler, so you may not be able to see this on the camera, but there's a 0 in the middle there, and then it counts outwards that way, and for some reason that is so helpful. The other thing is this heat erasable marker pen. I was so scared to use these for so long. I didn't believe that the iron would remove them completely, but a lovely lady in one of my sewing classes was using one, and so I actually got to try it out and I realised that actually they do work, and I wouldn't be without this now. It's so good for easily marking darts and things, and it comes off so much better than chalk and things like that. So I thought I would just quickly mention those. So my binding is all pressed, and for the armhole binding I've pressed it according to the pattern, which gets you to press up 1 centimetre along one edge of the binding, but for the neckline binding I've pressed it in half because I'm just going to apply that slightly differently, and I'll show you that when I come to do it. So the next thing I need to do is sew together the side seams and the shoulder seams as well. So I have sewn together the shoulder seams and the side seams, and I've overlocked them both and pressed them to the back. And I've just been and pressed under my button bands as well. So I've pressed under 1.5 centimetres first and then another 3 centimetres so that my 1.5 centimetres is enclosed inside. And I think for this version what I'm going to do is sew the button bands first. So I'm just literally going to edge stitch along that button band fold, and then I'm going to bias bind the neckline essentially on top of the button band and do the same with the facing. So let's sew the button bands in place, and then we just need to attach the neckline binding first. Next I'm taking the bias binding that I just pressed in half, and I'm matching raw edge to raw edge all along the neckline and just pinning in place and just leaving a little extension at the end of the binding which overlaps the button band so that I can turn it under when I come to top stitch around the neckline. Then I sew the binding in place with a 6mm seam allowance. So I've sewn my binding and pressed it away from the neckline now. It is a teeny tiny piece of binding, so there's not a lot of wiggle room there. So what I need to do now is just fold under the raw edges of the binding that were poking out, and then fold the whole thing to the inside of the neckband. If you've done bias binding finishes before, then obviously you'll know how to do this, but that just keeps everything nice and neat. Sometimes I feel like this can get a little bit bulky under the sewing machine, and if you find that, then sometimes it's easier to start a bit further in from that bulky bit and then just hand sew that end bit so that it looks nice and neat. Now I just need to sew that in place. And I think I'm going to do it from the right side because that is the way you're supposed to do it. But if you're a little bit nervous, you could always sew from the inside. The reason I want to sew it from the outside is just so that I can make sure that the fold or the fold line of the binding is sitting towards the inside as I'm sewing, and that hopefully will just make it sit a little bit neater. Okay, so now we need to bind the armholes. I hate binding armholes, it just feels so boring. I don't know why, but anyway, we need to get it done. So for this part, I'm just taking the bias binding that I pressed up with a centimetre fold along the bottom, and then I'm starting at the underarm seam and just leaving about 1.5 centimetres extending beyond the side seam. I'm just going to start pinning all the way around the armhole. When I come back to the side seam, I'm just going to trim the binding a 1.5 centimetre seam allowance again, because I'm eventually going to put a little seam there. So I've started and stopped my sewing around the armhole, about 1 centimetre either side of the side seam. And what I'm going to do now is just pinch these two raw edges together at the point at which they meet, and then I'm going to pin them in place. And I'm just going to sew down that short edge so that I can then press the seam open, and then I'm going to finish sewing all around the armhole. So things are coming together. We're looking like a top is forming. So the next thing I need to do is the facing. And with the facing, you would normally have 2 pieces cut on the fold that would just span the length of the front and back pieces, so you just join them at the sides. So for me today, I have 3 pieces for my facing. So we pin right sides together at the side seams, sew that together and press the seams open, and then I just need to press under 1 centimetre all along the unnotched edge, which will be the side that will fold into the garment, and then be top stitched down. There are some double notches all along the back piece of the facing so that you know which piece to press up and which piece will be sewn to the actual garment. So once that edge has been pressed up on the unnotched edge of the facing, we then need to just match the facing to the top all along the raw edges of the bottom of the garment. And so we just need to make sure that we're matching up the notches and the side seams when we're putting the facing in, and then just pin all along the raw edge. So now, in a similar way to how I finished my bias binding, I'm just going to fold that raw edge under and then fold the facing to the inside. Press it all nicely and pin it in place, and then just top stitch and then just edge stitch along the fold of the facing, which is inside the garment. I just have this little gap here because of the way the facing's been finished, and so I'm just going to hand sew that up so that it looks a bit better. I have to say I love how this is looking so far. So actually the last thing we need to do now is just add the buttons, and I have these lovely tortoiseshell, I think they are, buttons that I picked up from a vintage fair for 50p. And I have 5 of them, and I think they're going to work perfectly for this top. So I think I just need probably 4 buttons, and I want to start just under the binding at the top and finish kind of just before the facing at the end. We are done. Let's go and try on. Well, I don't think I could be any more pleased with that if I tried. I'm so happy with how that turned out. It's exactly what I wanted, and I think I'm going to have to make a gingham version now as well. Oh, I just think this is going to be so nice for wearing with all of my trousers and my skirts and things like that in the summertime, and it's so floaty and cool as well. But because it does stand away from your body, and because it's got the thicker straps, you can wear something underneath it as well, which is great, because I hate it when any kind of cami or bra or anything you're wearing underneath the top shows out. But this one has got the perfect coverage, nice thick straps, nice high armholes, nothing is draping down. It's just the perfect shape, which is why I always love the Ashton top anyway. But yeah, you just get a completely different look and feel just by adding that button band at the front, don't you? And I didn't even need to buy a new pattern. So I really hope this has given you some inspiration for how you can use and adapt patterns that you already own, particularly those patterns that you love and make all the time. Sometimes it can be really easy to just tweak and change things and just get a completely different look and feel. And as you know, that's the kind of thing I love to do here on this channel. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to wearing this over the summertime. I'm pretty sure this is going to be well worn, but all we need now is just some nice weather and some sunshine, because there hasn't been a lot of that here in the UK so far. I really hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you have, I'd love it if you gave the video a like, and don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss out on any future sewing videos. I post every week at 8 AM on a Sunday morning. So let me know if you'll be trying out this hack this summertime. I'd love to know. And I always want to know what you're sewing, so do leave me a comment down below as well, and just let me know what you've been up to and what you've been making. Take care everyone, happy sewing, and I'll look forward to seeing you in my next video. Bye.